Welcome to Re-Review, where we watch movies from our past with a perspective from today. Your hosts are Matt, Bobby, and Austin, and we love the films from our youth, so we're taking a look back to see if they still hold up. On this episode, we're continuing our Halloween movie month by discussing another Stephen King adaptation, Pet Sematary. It was released in 1989, directed by Mary Lambert, stars Dale Midkiff, Denise Crosby, and Gwynne. This movie is about the things you should not do when you find ancient burial grounds. Now, it's a fair warning, we're spoiling a 34-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen it, we will be revealing key plot points. The movie opens, and I think we were all intrigued at the beginning because the music was kind of getting us. We had that creepy choir stuff going, and it seemed really interesting. Very promising opening, right?
It seemed that way, for sure.
It was like happy and jovial, but also, right?
It reminded me of Trick or Treat a little bit, the way that it sounded, like the like you said, the little choir thing, like the kids singing, and like it had kind of like that vibe to it. And then Bobby said something like we were gonna have like 20 minutes of opening credits or something, and
well,
I was like, oh no!
I really thought that it was gonna be more of like the traditional like cemetery, like the stone kind of thing, with like the little like figures on top of the headpieces and stuff like that. But instead, we got more of a DIY kind of cemetery kind of thing, more of like this is a cast off where it's not really like an official thing. It's just kind of like, here's a place where we memorialize our dead pets.
I mean, pets need a cemetery,
right? Okay.
Oh wow!
The thing just got really spicy. Leave the comments on the YouTube, please. Do pets deserve cemeteries? We have a weird story, right? We got a family, Lewis Creed, Rachel Creed, their two kids, Gage Creed and Ellie Creed, and their cat,
Church.
Thank you. I was ready to call the cat Gage as well.
Winston Churchill.
They find a home he's moving to town to be a doctor for a smaller town, and he gets to meet his neighbor Judd, and we get introduced to the first ominous thing. Oh, look, a path. There's a path, Mommy.
I'll tell you about that later.
Thank you. And that was the thing. So they meet their neighbor and they ask him, what's up with this path? And he just goes, that'll be a good story that I'll have to tell you. So we can open up. So where was Judd from? What state was Judd? Is that a Maine? They were in Maine? Is that where they were? Was that a Maine accent?
Yeah. I guess. I guess I've never really been to Maine because that is an accent right there. But then again, I feel like he did because like he also played the judge in My Cousin Vinny, and he kind of had like a little bit of an accent there too. So
he reminded me of like the water boy dudes, like
it hurts.
I could see why you did that, but I kept going like 1920s gangster at the same time. Nah, you don't want to go down that path there. You say, nah. Like it was a thing that I was confused by, but I let it go because are we all agreeing was Fred the best actor in this film?
Definitely the most, I don't know if charismatic's what I'm looking for, but the most engaging. Everyone else was just kind of there. It felt like he was the only one who kind of felt like a character, and maybe it's the accent. Maybe I feel like kind of like when we watch The Shining or whatever. I feel like this movie has more. I have more exposure to it through pop culture than I do through the movie itself, and so so many times I've seen Judd referenced in his overalls with that accent. Like I feel like I've seen that more than I've definitely seen this movie. And so like that definitely stands out. Everyone else in this, it feels like a Lifetime original movie as far as like the casting and the acting and everything. So he's the only thing that stood out at all, to be honest.
He was like the most recognizable face for me too. He was like, I kind of had like a little bit of nostalgia with him because he was like the Nick at Night dude, basically. Like I just like remember his face and seeing him in like old black and white stuff for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm wondering, I guess I remember being very afraid of this movie as a kid, but I'm more confused now given when it was released, because in my head I feel like I saw this when I was 7, and this would have been after that. And then and I feel like I saw it maybe on USA or something along those lines. But
Mhm.
I will tell you, outside of what one jump scare that got me, I don't know that this falls under scary movie.
No, I mean, especially like if you ignore the last like 5 minutes of it, it doesn't feel like it at all. Like,
Mhm.
I think that you could have easily done this movie as a retrospective on the idea of death, grief, dealing with the death of a loved one. Like it, yeah, it didn't really have that creep factor or whatever that you would expect. I don't know if maybe the book had that or not, but this was borderline less scary than watching Goosebumps as a kid.
Mm-hmm. More gore than I think I anticipated.
Oh yeah, that what was it?
Yeah.
Pascal, when he was whatever happened to
The
him.
first initial scene that we see, yeah, it's like, wait, what? What's happening right now?
Yeah, that was just out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I was like, oh, yeah, I don't remember that. That must have been covered up in the TV version.
But is this the movie that taught you not to mess with ancient burial grounds?
Definitely one of them for sure. Don't mess with pets. Don't mess with burial grounds.
You
Yeah.
just hit a key thing. This movie is called Pet Cemetery, right?
Yeah, like I
In
really
my
thought.
head, I thought
Yeah.
we were going to be like dealing with just tons of undead pets.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I really thought it was gonna be like Night of the Living Pets, and they were just gonna be like coming and just like zombies, and just like they were just gonna be like, okay, like let's go run and find tools and just try to like bat away all these like pets that are coming, and like they're gonna be crawling out of the graves like some other movies or whatever. But maybe I'm just thinking like this was gonna be like Thriller or something like that. But
I think I wanted Thriller.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what I'm thinking is really scared me as a kid, and I somehow attribute it to this.
Well, like I can see if you're definitely the type that is terrified of the idea of death, this movie very much tries to touch on that on different aspects. Because I mean, if you have a pet, you inevitably have to come to terms with the idea that that pet is very likely going to die. In a within your lifetime, you're probably gonna have several dead pets in your lifetime or whatever, and then
I
deals with the idea of like children dying, the idea of spouses like.
Did you just give Bobby an existential crisis?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I think that, like, if you look at it from that point of view, there's like a lot of stuff that it kind of does touch on. And I know
It
that
does.
it's like if you watch a movie that has, like a lot of heights in it or whatever, even if you're not actually in that scenario, it can kind of give you anxiety putting yourself into that position. So I could see somebody who is very much terrified of the idea of death, or maybe not even of themselves dying, but of others around them dying. Cause I know people who, they're not as scared of death as they are about knowing people around them will die. And it
Mhm.
terrifies them.
There's also like trying to hide it from kids, basically. Like, I remember one time there was a coyote that took out a cat in our neighborhood. And I remember like my stepmom, like my niece was like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 at the time. My niece was like basically saying, like, if that happens to our cat, like, we're not going to tell her. We're just going to say, like, it's lost or something. And it's like, no, you can't say that. Like, they'll be like, "Well, let's find him," like, and so we had, like, some argument about, like, basically telling the truth, and it's like, there's really is, like, some people have a really, really hard time, like, breaking the hearts of children, which makes, like, a lot of sense, right? But it's just,
Well,
like, a shifty situation.
it's definitely confronting. How do you explain mortality to a child, right? How do you
Right,
explain death and dealing, like coping with death? And, especially, it seems like in this case, oh God, what was the little girl's name? Ellie
Ellie.
was
mhm,
very much like attached to the cat. Like, especially like being like moving to another area, the cat probably was her best friend. And so
right,
like how do you tell a child, and how does a child understand the concept of death? And I think they kind of approach that decently in this, because you like, well, it's kind of like, in Lion King, Simba, like dad wake up, just understanding the concept of,
right, yeah.
a loved one dying or whatever, and like a child not really understanding. But yeah.
I mean, Lewis as the dad, Dale Midkiff, did have that good moment where she asked, what happens? Asked kind of the what happens after you die. And I thought he gave her a great answer. You just kind of said, look, you got some options. Choose your path. And,
Here's my
hits her.
I don't really know. You choose, instead of no, we believe in this. This is what happens. So it's very much of a more of a democratic system, so to speak.
Would he have given a different
Progressive.
answer had there was not a zombie cat in his living room?
I think so. I think he would have leaned on his candle blowing out in the wind thing.
Oh, you think so? You think it wouldn't have been more idealistic, oh, there's an afterlife, or it's like, nope, there's a zombie cat right there. So clearly something does happen.
Well, okay, so he's trying to save this dude, and then the dude gets possessed to foreshadow the words of Judd. Like, what's going on there? What is this? What are these spirits that were battling between zombies and this thing that was trying to not have the zombies come to life?
No, that's a really, really good question because I was really confused about that. I know they said a few times that the one dude, what's his name? The dude with the messed up head, the ghost who,
Pascal.
yeah, he became my favorite character throughout it. Basically, he kept saying "Oh, your dad helped me, so I'm gonna help him." So it's clearly not they're all Indian burial ground demon possessed murderers. There's some kind of weird spectrum there of some kind of I don't know battle of good versus evil after life kind of situation.
But why this ghost is I guess what's the trigger point, right? I mean, this was his first death at the hospital, so therefore turns into ghost that needs to help him, or I'm not. And okay, how did he help him? Only because he's like, we need to do things by the books. Then they put the curtain up, and the guy's just dead. Like what?
I know it wasn't even really all that affected by it at the time. They
He helped the wife get a rental car.
It's so it's weird because there's part of me that was sort of confused by because it didn't make any sense why Pascal was so insightful into the whole thing.
Yep.
So especially because he very much broke out into the cryptic rhyme or whatever right after dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of me wondered if maybe he'd been possessed by the good or whatever, and that was what was driving his existence. It was possessed, was taking the form of Pascal or whatever. And then you had whatever the evil was that was driving the pet cemetery. Because it doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's just bad writing. I don't know, but because it didn't make any. Because you're right, he didn't help him. He didn't do any. He didn't. It wasn't somehow he I don't know. Pascal had a wife or something and somehow broke it, he, did something nice or did dude literally carried him in there, said put a monitor on him, and he's dead. That was it.
Yep, that was it.
Right.
This causes me pain. Okay. Look.
So was Pascal's was his was he trying to not get, what was his goal? To get them
to
not
save them. Yeah, to not be zombified. To not zombie cats and definitely not cross over so that things can come back from the dead, because that's where the dead walk, through the threshold.
Yeah, that didn't
All right,
work.
let's get heavy here. Let's get heavy for a moment.
Oh no.
Oh.
You're watching your kid fly a kite. Do you just turn your back on your kid for 40 minutes so he can run into the damn road? And can we talk about where this company is at, UNESCO, whatever it is, and how they have so many trucks running on a residential road in the worst possible place ever at high speeds?
Yeah, is this some anti-corporate statement or something?
I just want to know if these people had an HOA that prevented them from installing a fence.
No, yeah, a fence would have been really good. A fence would have been really good. Hey, you have this
Or
whole
a
scene
leash.
of them at a, oh jeez, yes, a leash could also help. They're having a little picnic, flying the kite. Kite's getting so high. And then, it's just I got to run to save my kid, and I eat it, and the kid gets crushed by a truck, just utterly crushed. I just don't know. It was one of those things where it's like, at this point, we knew what was going to happen at that point. It was very obvious. Okay, we're here to turn people into zombies. But I think because of the lack of being afraid of it, and things didn't feel as creepy as it could, it was almost like wanting something different, like taking the same tale, but maybe doing it in a different way. And I don't even know the answer to that.
It's weird because I feel like when I watched the remake they did in like 2018, 2019, whenever it came out, I feel like that was what happened. I feel because when I started watching this, I was like, I don't know why, but I feel like the kid died earlier, like way earlier in the movie. And I feel like maybe they did that in the remake where like literally like it's in the first like half hour that it happens. And so like there's more of a build up to it. But yeah, I don't know. The when the beginning of the movie when they first move in, they kind of have like the fake out where you see the truck kind of coming and the
Yep.
kid's walking and then Judd saves them or whatever.
Mhm.
Like going back and redoing it is like, would that honestly have been a better point to actually have the kid get hit? Like just do it like right off the bat, get it out of the
But
way.
then Judd comes in and says, "Let's zombify your baby,"
Maybe
before the animal.
I don't. That's what's tough. I'm all for this movie just being a bunch of zombie pets rather than zombie toddler.
Right.
Right.
So this is, we could get a, how would you change this to make the movie better? Like, so we're all agreeing, like, pet shotgun wars, even though this would not fly with Peter or anyone who I remember playing The Last of Us, and you had to kill a dog in that, and that was brutal. So I can't imagine if this truly was a zombie pet battle thing.
I mean,
they'd have to be like skeletons or something so that it wouldn't look like you're like murdering actual animals.
Oh, you want
right?
Pirates
like,
of the Caribbean,
right
style pet zombies?
And they could do the same kind of thing where the cat can try to drink some milk and the milk will just go all the way straight through its whole.
This is.
I cannot feel.
I mean, I see what you're doing. I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
This movie is just like a comedy.
Were we really laughing though?
I mean, ironically, I guess. Like there were so many moments in this that, again, it felt like a TV movie for those moments because I mean, the budget was obviously not very high for this. At least it didn't feel like it.
I remember one of my favorite comments that made me think about the budget was, what happened to all the music?
Yeah, it just stopped. Like literally it had that creepy choir music and then like literally just stopped for a solid like half hour at least. And then it kicks up again when things kind of got a little bit more interesting towards the end. But I definitely would have liked I would like to see this movie, the idea of this movie, not necessarily what the actual book was, but the idea behind the book, and have somebody like, I can't remember his name, the director behind It 1 and 2 or whatever, take a crack at it, because I would have loved to seen like a James Wan-esque approach to what was her name, Zelda, the sister. Like I would have loved to seen a scene where like you wouldn't see her, but you'd hear the cracking of the bones as she was like hiding in the shadows and stuff. And then like you would see like this very like elongated, crooked man looking thing with like really bony spine on the back. That would have been pretty good.
What you just did was more visually impressive in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
Than the entire movie we just watched.
And maybe I don't remember the remake, to be honest, very much, so it might not have been much better, but maybe they tried that in the remake. Maybe they might have given it a little bit. Maybe because I mean, I think even like Bobby said, like the beginning of this movie, they're like, why is it not dark? Like it was very well lit. It was very like there was no creepiness whatsoever to it. And I feel like that applied to most of this movie until they initially went to the pet cemetery at night. And then, a couple other scenes after that, but like it just didn't have the creep factor as it was going.
How do we feel about zombie baby wrestling?
Only if the baby's wearing like a top hat and a coat.
No, baby. Get away from me, baby.
It was so weird when he comes back and just the appearance they gave him. And then I think my favorite part was the doll falling from the ceiling. Doll baby trying to attack the dad.
That must have been the stand-in for Chucky, right? From Child's Play.
Yes,
it
totally
must
seemed
have
like
been.
it.
Like it even felt like they probably reused his mask because I felt like all of a sudden
Mhm.
his hair got longer when he jumped down. They're like, oh, let's just take that Chucky mask and there we go.
So the cat wasn't okay. The cat was violent, right? But not in the
Yeah.
way that the humans were.
And not like Spot. Like Church never felt evil because like all the things that he
Yeah.
did, like scratching him, it's just what a cat would do. Like
Mhm.
none of that was like evil or possessed. It was just, and like the rat thing or whatever, I'm like, cats do that. They leave you presents. So I'm like, that's really not that weird.
So what we're saying, this movie was made by dog lovers or cat haters. They had an agenda to try to paint cats in a bad light, and they failed.
I guess
Because
so.
all we saw was a cat. Yeah, it seems like unfair for the cat. So we have our zombie baby wrestling. The couple key things I could think about with the violence is him taking the scalpel and the slice through the ankle. That was a bit brutal to watch.
That is to this day one of my childhood fears. Like I don't know if it was this movie, but I definitely have seen a couple movies like this. I think Trick or Treat did it as well, the whole tendon and slice thing.
Yeah.
So
Kill
like
Bill.
like getting out of bed or whatever, like that's like my fear of like getting out of bed and somebody's gonna slice with like a kitchen knife and take out my tendons. Ugh.
Yikes.
Nope.
Yeah. That doesn't now I have a fear that I didn't think about until you just painted the picture of me waking up in the morning and now checking under my bed. But that's why we watch scary movies. Let's think of this in the terms of Halloween movies as a whole. This is supposed to be scary, but where are you putting this? Like understanding that Stephen King, understanding that to me that gives it a tie that there's an expectation that maybe this should be watched by a lot of people. Matt, I know you regularly watch a lot of Halloween movies this time of year. So is this one that you even had in your rotation?
No. This I think that there's way better movies out there that are Stephen King movies. I mean, obviously you have It. I think It chapter 1 and a little bit of chapter 2 was very well done. I think The Mist, even though it's not as scary, I think is a much better movie than this. I mean, Carrie, I'd much rather watch that. But even then, that's not really a scary movie. Like it's weird because I feel like he had this this image or like this thing about being scary, and I don't feel like that's actually like an accurate moniker to put on Stephen King, or at least not the movies, because very few of his movies actually come off as particularly scary. Because I mean, he also wrote The Green Mile, so it's like what you know it, it's like you have Children of the Corn and It, and then you have something like this. This definitely wouldn't be on my normal Halloween list. Like watching this now, if somebody asked me like, is it a good Halloween movie? I'd be like, well, let's start at the good part and then we'll get into the Halloween part. And no, I'm just gonna go no.
I mean, I am circumventing to our last question in a roundabout way, but just again thinking big picture for Halloween, it's just you want to. This is probably weird because I know Halloween can be divisive for people, but Halloween there's a lot of joy. Is the way I look at it,
right?
And
free
and
candy, man.
Yes, lots of free candy, and this feels like it kind of sucks out some of that joy. Would you agree, Bobby?
I think that there's some interesting ideas here, but I just don't think that it executes it. I mean, there's some frightening ideas like the burial grounds and all that other like child loss and pet loss and all that kind of stuff is really terrible. But I just think that it could be executed better.
Well, then I just think it's time. And with you saying that, Bobby, Matt, would you recommend this movie?
No, I don't think this movie is. You can exclude this from your Halloween list for sure, and I think you can exclude it from any list, to be honest.
Bobby?
Let's try your beloved new TV series reboot and try it.
Oh, yes, you
Try-
want it to be a TV show?
Try it that way.
So you want a never-ending show where people are either resurrecting their pets or resurrecting their loved ones and
Yeah.
having zombie battles?
The pet zombie of the week.
You know what? I'm actually on board for that. I could see this being on Netflix, directed by, oh crap, who was the one who did some of those recent Netflix shows that are kind of like creepy? Like I could see it in that same vein. I could see like something that's a little bit more like not like the cat of the day, the zombie of the day type thing, but very much if you could build on the idea of one, I feel like if you built more around the community, I didn't really get a sense for the size of where they were or the people they were. So if you build up more of the side characters, I think that'd be good. If you built up the relationship, maybe, you know, some of the strains that they kind of hinted at would be more in the story. And then you could have like an actual trauma around the loss of a child. I could see it potentially working. A better director, better writer could probably make some pretty good stuff out of this material.
To try and incentivize, you know, finding the burial ground, maybe get the history behind that, all that good stuff. Yes. All right, Bobby, TV show. You sold me. Still don't watch it. Skip this one. So much so that I'm just going to lead into, we're continuing Halloween month. And next time I'm going to be very scared and I'm going to be very unhappy. So you're going to find out what that is when we get there. I'm already not in a good place. So, as always, thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes dead is better.